The records, New York. Okay, I want to see the New York. Just I will go to the parameter file, save it. I'm going to change the city and I will run this. Start workflow. It is running and it got succeeded and 606 records has been loaded. 606 records has been loaded and all the records belongs to New York. Understood the concept of the parameter? Any questions?
How we can like do multiple parameters like file if you want
That
to.
you should tell me. I will ask the same question to you. You should tell me now how to do that.
Yes, then you need to create one
One more
list.
parameter.
List.
One more parameter.
Okay, I was thinking to create
Not the
list.
list file. One more parameter. Okay. So you can see it. This one as city one. I'm going to say it as this one as city one. Let me copy this. This one I'm going to change it to city two. Okay. Save it. And the same names should be there in this mapping parameter. Okay. So here I will change this to city one. Okay. And I will add one more. This will be city 2. City 2 and this is a parameter. This is of 20. Okay.
No, but if city is not like the parameter which we want to pass, like something like different thing.
Sorry, your voice is a bit low. Can you speak a bit louder?
I'm saying if instead of city, if I want to create different kind of parameters, so we can put it in the same file, right?
Yeah, we can put it in the same file.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So in general, they maintain this parameter like this. Parameter file will be one, and we will have the multiple instance. That means let us assume that if you have created for this, okay. So you have some more parameters. Okay. Sorry. So okay, so we are using some parameter values. So let us assume that this is only. Okay, so we are going to differentiate each and every workflow like this. We are going to maintain only one parameter file only. In that parameter file, the required parameters we are going to pass it. Okay, the workflows based upon the session.
Okay.
Okay,
So for the different transformation, we can use only one parameter file, right? You want to say?
different workflows, one parameter file. Different workflows, one parameter file.
Okay, but not with the different transformation, we can use one parameter file, no?
It's not about, so we are not defining the transfer at the transformation level. We are defining at the workflow level, sorry, mapping level.
Okay, suppose different mapping, can we do? One,
Yeah, yeah. Here that's the same example, right? So this is the another mapping. Okay, this is another mapping xmt dot session. Okay, this is the another mapping, and in that mapping we are using this variable, sorry, this parameter.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm passing this value. So this value is for s dot parameter, s underscore parameter. This value in that mapping we are using this city equal to New York. Okay, so this is the parameter which we are passing to that particular mapping. Okay, so in this s underscore m underscore connected lookup we are using this variable. Okay,
And if there is a different workflow, we cannot use this
different,
workflow.
no, different workflow in the sense I didn't get you.
This is like one task, right? One workflow which we wanted to do with something. There's some goal of this thing. If there's some other thing which we want to do, like not this exactly. So can we use if we are using different tables and different things so we can use this parameter file.
So one minute. Okay, so let it be. Don't be get confused. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, let us. Yeah. So this is one parameter file. Okay. So what is the question now? Okay. So this is one parameter file. We have defined one parameter. So what you want? What is the requirement now? You tell me. I will explain.
No, what I got to know from this, like the second thing you put it the connection lookup something, right? So that those both the sessions we are using in one workflow, right? Or no?
Yeah, we can. It's at the session level. Okay, we are defining at the session level. Wherever you use this session, if it is a reusable session, we are defining at the sorry, in the mapping level, right? So whatever the variables that declare in that particular mapping, you need to define here. Okay, the parameter file will be one, and the entries for each workflow will be different. That means the session.
Okay.
Okay, you don't be get confused. Okay, we can use the same session here as well. Okay, we are going to use this session here as well. So that
Mm-hmm.
parameters will be applicable to this session. Okay, it's not at the workflow level. It is at the session level.
Acha, okay.
Session is associated with mapping. That
Okay.
means it comes in at the mapping level. Okay, so whatever
Mm-hmm.
the mapping parameters which you have defined, that you are going to pass in one parameter file. Okay, we are not going to maintain a separate parameter files. If you want to maintain, we can maintain, but most of the times you're going to maintain only one parameter file. In that parameter file, we'll have different entries for each session.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to define. So this is the session name, and these are the parameter values which we are using. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and we have one more concept called global. We have the concept called global. Okay, so global, so that means if you say it as global, if you say it as global, let us assume that this is the date parameter. Okay, date, and this is sysdate. Okay, when we are saying it as a global, this parameter can be used across all the mappings. We can use this parameter across all the mapping. When you are saying it as a global, we can use it across all the mapping. We don't need to. That means if you are using the same parameter in different mappings, we can define it as a global, and we can use it across the multiple mappings. Okay, so this is the syntax for global variables. This is the individual session level variables. These are the global variables. Sorry, global parameters. Sorry. This is about the parameters, and next we are going to see about the variables. Next we are going to see about the variables. So as I said, the variable value will be changing in the middle of the session. The variable value will be changing in the middle of the session, and it won't remain the same for the entire load. Okay, so now based upon this variable, so now I'm going to use the variable, and based upon this variable I'm going to do the incremental load. Okay, so when the session load has been completed, it is going to store the last value in the variable. It is going to store the last value in the variable. So here we have in EMP table, these are the records. Okay, these are the records that are present in the EMP table. These are the records that are present in EMP table. Okay, now I will declare one variable. I will declare one variable which will store the maximum of higher date. Maximum of higher date. So I'm going to add one filter condition at the source qualifier. I'm going to add one filter condition at the source qualifier, so that for the first time when you run the mapping, it will load all the records. It will load all the records, and it is going to store the maximum value. So what is the maximum value here? 12th January 9 12th January 83 is the maximum value that will be stored under this variable. Okay, so it is going to, we are going to set the maximum value. It is going to check which one is the maximum value. Okay, it is going to change till it finds the maximum value in the middle of the session. Okay, and it is going to store the maximum value in the variable, and it will retain the value at the end of the session. It will retain the value at the end of the session. Now in the source qualifier, what I will do is I'm going to add the condition hire date is greater than dollar hire date. That means every time it is going to check, it will check whether is there any records present in the employee table which is greater than this value, which is greater than this value. Let me explain one more time. So the variable concept is different. It will be changing in the middle of the session, and it will retain the last value at the end of the session. The last value means based upon your logic, max or minimum, we can store the value. So now in this example, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to declare one variable $hire date at the mapping level, and in that hire date I'm going to store the maximum of hire date, maximum of hire date. Now if I run the mapping, at the end of the session, it will store the hire date, the maximum of hire date in the variable, the maximum of hire date in the variable, and it is going to retain the value at the end of the session. It will store that value in that variable, and when you run the mapping again for the second time, it will check whether is there any record which is present, sorry, which is greater than the current date which has been stored. Okay, so why? Because I have added the condition hire date is equal to $hire date at the source qualifier. For the first run, it will allow all the records because there won't be any value in the variable, and it will allow all the records. And at the end of the session, it's going to store the maximum of hire date, which is nothing but 12th January 83. Again, if you run for the second time, so it will check on this filter condition whether is there any record present which is greater than this date. Okay, so this is how we are going to do the incremental load. Let's see how to do this. Go to mappings, create m underscore variable, here, this one, emp. I will take one expression transformation. This is my target. Okay, sure. Okay, now here in the mappings we need to declare, first of all we need to declare them variable. We need to declare the variable, so which is hire date, and which it is a variable, and the data type is date and time, and every time I'm going to pick the maximum value. Every time I'm going to pick the maximum value. Select OK and save it. Select OK. We have defined one variable at the mapping level. We have defined one variable at the mapping level, $, hire date. Now I will add the condition in the source qualifier. In the source qualifier, I'm going to add the condition that the hire date should be greater than this. Okay, the hire date should be greater than this value. Select OK, save it. Okay, so we have added one filter condition. Every time it is going to check whether is there any hire date which is greater than the stored value. Currently for the first time there won't be any value present in the variable port, so that variable it's going to allow, it will allow all the records into the target, and it will store the maximum value out of the 14 records, the maximum hire date out of the 14 records, and that value will be stored in that hire date. Okay, next, and how to pick the maximum value, okay, so here I will create one more variable port, v underscore hire date. This one I will make it as date and time, and the output port, and in this output port, one second, we have this function. You can see the set count of variable, set maximum of variable, set minimum of variable, set variable. Okay, so if you select the set variable option, it is going to set the last value, that means the last record value, to that particular variable. If you select set minimum variable, it is going to pick out of the 14 records the minimum value to the variable. If you select set maximum variable, it will set the maximum value out of 14 records. Okay, if you're going to select count of variable means it is going to set the count. That means here our count is the 15 records. Okay, so these are the variables for assigning the, so these are the functions for which we are going to use to assign the value for the variables. Next, we are going to use the maximum. Okay, set maximum of variable, to which variable we are going to assign higher date. Which value? Higher date. Okay, so this is the syntax. Set maximum of variable to the variable from which value. Validate it, select OK. Okay, so we are assigning the maximum value to this variable which is coming in this port. Okay, the maximum value in this port we are going to assign to this variable by using this function. Apply and save it. Let me create a workflow for this. Source, this one is target, normal, apply, save. Let me delete the data manually from the EMP table. Okay, now I will run the workflow. Start workflow. It is running and got succeeded, and it has loaded 15 records. It has loaded 15 records. Select start from EMP. 14 records has been loaded. And where will be the value will be stored? Where the value will be stored? You can see it here. Right click on the session, and what is the last value that has been stored is, you can see dollar higher date 00117. What is the value that has been stored? 1 second. One shit. Okay, just a minute. We have created that as an output port. Let me reset that. Okay, start workflow. Okay, 15 records, and now let me see the hire date. Start workflow. Yes, 1 second. Okay, so now if you observe here, so what I have done the mistake is, so here instead of the variable port, I have selected output port. Okay, so it's going to pick the last value only. Okay, so now here what I have done here is, so I'm storing the maximum value out of the higher date. So it has stored the maximum higher date, which is nothing but 12/1983. If you see the date here in the table, the maximum of higher date is 12th January 1983. That is a value that has been stored in this variable. Okay, if I rerun this workflow, what will happen? Any one of you, if I run this workflow again, what will happen?
You'll get the
So
same
we have,
value.
yeah, because it has now, we have added the condition. What is the condition here? EMP dot hire date should be greater than hire date. So is there any records which are there in the EMP table which is greater than the hire date value? We won't have any records. Okay, view persistence value. This is the value that has been stored, and it will check whether is any records which are greater than that particular hire date value. It won't load any records, zero records. If you add any record to the source, if you add any records to the source which is greater than this value, then only it will load the data to the target. Okay, so let me do that. So I'm going to add one record which is greater than the current maximum of hire date. Okay, so this is the maximum of hire date. Let me copy this. James 4, and I will commit this. So here I added have added this record. I had added this record 1984, 12th January 1984. If I run this workflow, it will allow one record. Why? Because we have added one record, and now if you see the variable value in this session, it will have 1984. This is the value which we have added here. So every time this variable value will retain at the end of the session, it is going to retain the value, the last value based upon the value which you are going to set. That means the maximum or minimum or set variable. Based upon that, it is going to retain the value at the end of the session. Okay. So any questions on variables, parameters and variables? No questions?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so in the last class, we are left with the assignment task. We are left with the assignment task. We can define the workflow. I have explained about the workflow variables. We have the variables at the workflow level. On the link condition, if you see, we have these variables, predefined variables. Okay, predefined variables. These are the variables. It will store the value. Okay, for every run, it is going to store the end time error. If you have any error codes, error messages, first value, last value, it's going to store at the end of the session. Sorry, for each and every run, it will store the value. For the success rows, will store the number of success rows. For the start time, at what time it has been started. Status, whether it got succeeded or failure. If you have any target failure rows, it will store the number of record count that has been failed. Target success rows, the number of records that has been successfully loaded to the target. If you have any transformation errors, that count also will be stored. Okay, so these are the predefined variables for each and every session. These are the predefined variables for each and every session. Okay, end time, error code, error message. So these values will be stored for each and every run for a particular session. Okay, so now yesterday we are left with assignment task. Yesterday we are left with the assignment task. So now by using this assignment task, I can assign a value which is defined at the workflow level, which has been, which we are going, sorry, we are going to assign a value to the variable which is defined at the workflow level. Okay, so I have this session, so I will link this to. So if you want to use this assignment task, first of all, we need to define one variable at the workflow level. We need to define one variable at the workflow level. So now, first of all, I'm going to declare one variable at the workflow level. Further, go to workflows, edit, variables. Here. So this one I'm going to say it as, let me do some count. Okay, count of this count and select OK. Save it. Now here I'm going to give the condition as status equal to succeeded. Status equal to succeeded. And by this assignment task, I'm going to assign a value. I will assign a value. You can see here. Just click on this condition, add a new expression, and it will add one condition here. And what is the value which you are going to add to this variable, which is defined at the workflow level? So I will add. We can add any of these conditions. That means the number of success rows. Okay, number of success rows is number of success rows I am assigning to this count. Select OK and save it. Okay, here I am going to give the condition as uh, this count is greater than 1, then only I want to run this workflow. So what I am doing here, so I have created one assignment task. With this assignment task, I am going to assign a value to this variable which I have defined at the workflow level. Okay, so first I have added one session, and after that assignment task, and next one more session. Okay, so in this session, so based upon the success, so if this has been succeeded, then it will trigger this assignment task, and this assignment, with this assignment task, I'm going to assign the number of success rows. I'm going to assign to this count variable which I have defined at the workflow level. Now if his count is greater than 1, then only I am going to execute this session. Okay, let me save this and start workflow. The variable is running and it got succeeded, and variable assign has been succeeded. We can see in the session there are no success rows. And it hasn't triggered the next session. Because there are no records which is greater than the current persistence value. I will reset this, select OK, and I will run this now. Start workflow. It is running, succeeded, and this will also succeeded. One second. This count is greater than 1. It should trigger. The count is greater than 1, and this the count should be greater than 1, and it has been assigned with this. Just give me a second. This is the resistance and select OK. Successful rows, it should. Here I have assigned the wrong session. Okay, so this one I should assign. Okay, so I have assigned this one. Let me save this. Let me reset this. Save it. Now again I will rerun. Start workflow. Now it is running this. You can see it got succeeded. Okay, so why? Because the count is greater than 1 and it has triggered this connected lookup. Okay, so this is how we can define the variables at the workflow level, and we can assign the values by using the assignment task. Okay, the mistake was, so what I'm done here is, so I have selected, instead of this variable map a session, I have selected this connected. That's the reason it has been not triggering the next session. Okay, so I have selected the correct session. Now it has triggered the connected lookup. This is about the assignment task and the variables which we can define at the workflow level. Most of the times you're going to use the parameters and variables at the mapping level only. Some rare occasions we're going to use the parameters in the workflow level. So any questions on today's topics? Okay, tomorrow we are going to see about the slowly changing dimensions. So which will be a complex mappings. We are going to see how to capture the history for a particular table. Okay, we are going to see it tomorrow. Before we start, so I request all you people to go through the lookup transformation, expression transformation, router transformation, update strategy transformation, and what else we have? Yeah, the lookup transformation. So go through all these transformations. Tomorrow we are going to use all together in one mapping. In one mapping we are going to use all the transformations at once in the slowly changing dimension. It will be a bit complex mapping. So please go through these 5 transformations so that it will be helpful for you to understand the concept much more clear. Okay. So that's it for today's session. And if you have any queries, you can ask.
Prasad, you just put the documents if you have, no?
Yeah, I will send it. Sorry. Actually, I was supposed to send it yesterday. I will send it anyhow. Today I will send it.
Prasad, if possible, the sample resumes also.
Yeah, in the same share drive only I'm going to share the sample resume. 2 sample resumes I'm going to share it.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Yeah, చెప్పండి.
స్క్రిప్ట్ మోడల్లో నాకు అది ఎర్రర్ లిస్ట్ ఫైల్ ఎర్రర్ చూపిస్తుంది ప్రసాద్ గారు.
మీకు ప్రెజెంటర్ కింద ఇచ్చాను, యాక్సెప్ట్ చేయండి.
ఇక్కడ ఇది రన్ చేస్తే ప్రసాద్ గారు
రన్ చేయండి, మీరు మ్యాపింగ్ రన్ చేయండి. రన్ చేస్తే ఎవరు వస్తుందో చూపించండి.
ఓకే.
ఎర్రర్ కనిపిస్తుంది కదా క్లియర్ గానే.
అదేనండి, లిస్ట్ ఫైల్ అవ్వట్లేదు అంటున్నారు, బట్ నేను క్రియేట్ చేశాను, అది నాకు రావట్లేదు ప్రసాద్ గారు.
చూడండి మీరు చూపించండి. లిస్ట్ ఫైల్ ఏం క్రియేట్ చేశారు? సోర్స్ ఫైల్ డైరెక్ట్కి వెళ్ళండి. లిస్ట్ ఫైల్ ఉందా అక్కడ?
ఉందండి. ఇక్కడ క్రియేట్ చేశాను చూడండి.
చేశారు. మీకు ఫ్లాట్ ఫైల్ ఎప్పుడైనా యూస్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు మీకు ఏం చెప్పాను? అలాంగ్ విత్ దట్ ఎక్స్టెన్షన్ పాస్ చేయాలని చెప్పాను కదా.
చేశానండి.
క్లోజ్ చేయండి, ఇది క్లోజ్ చేయండి. ఓకే, మ్యాక్సిమైజ్ చేయండి. అది కాదు, సోర్స్ ఫైల్స్లోకి వెళ్ళండి, ఫోల్డర్లోకి. ఓకే, సో ఇది ఏం ఫైల్ క్రియేట్ చేశారు మీరు? దానికి ఏదో ఎక్స్టెన్షన్ ఏమీ లేదు. .txt ఎడిట్. ఓకే, సారీ, ఎడిట్ కాదండి, రీనేమ్ చేయండి దాన్ని. వన్ సెకండ్, ఒక్క నిమిషం ఆగండి. జస్ట్ ఏ మినిట్, నా కంట్రోల్స్ ఇస్తారా?
ఓకే,
ఇచ్చారా?
ఇచ్చానండి.
ఓకే, ఓకే. సో ఇది మీ లిస్ట్ ఫైల్.
ఓకే,
మీకు along with the extension ఇవ్వాలని చెప్పాను కదా, ఎక్స్టెన్షన్ ఏవైతే ఉంటుందో మీరు ఇవ్వలేదు. ప్రతిసారి చెప్తూనే ఉన్నాను, అది యాక్చువల్గా మనం ఫైల్ ఎప్పుడైనా పాస్ చేస్తే వీ నీడ్ టు పాస్ అలాంగ్ విత్ దట్ ఎక్స్టెన్షన్. ఓకే, అది అవుతుంది. ఇంకా నెక్స్ట్ ఇంకేంటి ఒకటి ఉంది.
ఇంకొకటి టార్గెట్ లోడ్ ప్లాన్ లోనండి సోర్స్ నుంచి మనము 1 minute ఐ విల్ షో యూ.
చూపించండి. స్క్రీన్ మీద ఏదైనా హ్యాంగ్ అయిందా అంటే మీ స్క్రీన్ మాకేం
టార్గెట్ లోడ్ ప్లాన్ కి అది నాకు
మీ స్క్రీన్ నాకేం కనిపించడం లేదు.
అవునా, 1 minute
అక్కడ అలాగే బ్లాక్ అయి ఉంది మీది స్క్రీన్.
ఇంకొకసారి కంట్రోల్స్ ఇవ్వండి, అది పంపించండి, నేను కంట్రోల్స్ ఇస్తాను.
మీకు ఆల్రెడీ కంట్రోల్స్ ఉన్నాయి, నాకు ఆల్రెడీ కంట్రోల్స్ ఉన్నాయి కానీ ఐఎమ్ అనేబుల్ టు కంట్రోల్. ఒక్క నిమిషం అండి, జస్ట్ మినిట్. మళ్ళీ కంట్రోల్స్ షో మై స్క్రీన్ సెలెక్ట్ చేయండి.
ఓకే, చూపించట్లేదండి.
షో మై స్క్రీన్ ఆప్షన్ ఇచ్చాను మీకు, సెలెక్ట్ చేయండి. రాలేదా?
రాలేదండి.
ఏమొస్తుంది చెప్పండి. కానీ
ఏం రావట్లేదండి అసలు.
ఏం అంటే ఎర్రర్ ఏమొస్తుంది?
ఓకే, ఇక్కడ కాదండి. ఇప్పుడు ఇంకొకటి, ఇక్కడ మనం ఇంకొక సోర్స్ ఫైల్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తాం కదండి. ఇక్కడ టార్గెట్ లోడ్ ప్లాన్ లో 2 సోర్స్ ఫైల్స్ ఇస్తాం కదా.
అవును,
ఒక 2 సోర్స్ ఫైల్స్ నేను కనెక్ట్ చేయలేకపోతున్నానండి. ఇట్స్ షోస్ ఎర్రర్.
2 సోర్స్ ఫైల్ దేన్ని కనెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు? ఒక్క నిమిషం అండి, మీకు ప్రెజెంటర్ ఇస్తున్నాను. మళ్ళీ ఒకసారి చూడండి, వచ్చిందా ఇప్పుడు? సెలెక్ట్ చేయండి షో మై స్క్రీన్.
రావట్లేదండి.
అది రేపు చూస్తానండి, ఎందుకంటే నాకు ఆఫీస్ కూడా టైం అవుతుంది ఆల్రెడీ. సో రేపు చూస్తాను. మీరు దేనికి కనెక్ట్ అయిన ఒకసారి వీడియో చూడండి. మీరు దేనికి కనెక్ట్ చేయడం ట్రై చేస్తున్నారు నాకు అర్థం కాలేదు. సో మీరు ఒకసారి చూడండి, వీడియో చూడండి ఒకసారి.
ఓకే,
రేపు చెప్తాను, యాక్చువల్లీ నాకు ఆఫీస్ టైం అవుతుంది ఆల్రెడీ. ఓకే, థ్యాంక్స్. గుడ్. Sushma, do you have any doubts?
No, Krishna, I was just looking at her doubts.
Okay, fine. That's it.
Okay. So
That's it for today's session.